What are two things that you interact with on nearly a daily basis? It's a question, and the answer should come to you fairly quickly. It's food and technology. Food because, well, obviously you need to eat to live, and food tastes good. And technology, well, we live in a world now where it's nearly impossible to not use technology, to go a day without it. Whether it's the phone you carry, the computer you use at home, or the computer at work. These are two things that are part of our daily life. On this episode of The Crow's Nest, we discuss the food industry, what it's about, its dark side, and we also begin to talk about technology, the pros and the cons of this technologically sophisticated world that we all live in. So without any further ado, I'd like to present to you our next conversation. I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Bobby A., thank you for coming back on. We're going to try something. This is going to be a one-off episode. What do we want to call this episode?
So I think we're going to call this one the bane of the American diet and the overall food production system in the United States.
All right. So for this episode, each of us is going to ask one question. And since you're kind of already beginning, hit us up with your question.
So my question for you is, what do you think about how it's actually, because I was doing some research on it, it's actually disgusting how Americans eat and how we produce our food. I'm not even talking about like the veganism and the animal part of it. It's just like our portions, what we take off the shelves, like the preservatives we eat. And so that's like the heavier topic about what I want to ask you about. What you think about that just generally, and then we can obviously flow off of that. And then secondary would be the comedy part. And it's actually not comedy, it's more of like manipulation, how all these big companies, General Mills and things like that, have all these like fun mascots to basically to promote and advertise their food, and they get children addicted. Children and like young teenagers addicted to all this just garbage that they're serving.
Okay, so question number one, or so your question, just to make sure I got it completely, is you want to talk about, right, Americans' dietary habits, our food culture, and also kind of how that ties into like food advertising, i.e., like I'm thinking Captain Crunch, like cereals that are targeting kind of young kids.
Perfect, exactly. So like how they almost go hand in hand. One hand washes the other there. People are like, oh, we eat like trash and stuff like that, but look at the commercials that we were watching, that you and I were watching when we were growing up as children. Obviously Lucky Charms, Toucan Sam, the Cheeto guy, like they're all like these fun, cool mascots, and that's how we started eating all this bullshit. So let's start with the serious topic first, like portion size, the obesity, how America's literally just the fattest country in the world.
So that's like a very interesting question. I actually have a lot of like opinions on this, and not that all my opinions are valid, but I've thought about it. So when it comes to the diet, yes, I do. So I have a story for you. This is two stories actually to kind of touch on this. So I recall going to visit family in Oklahoma, and this is ages ago, maybe a decade. And we went to, we were out doing something, and we ended up going to like a fast food restaurant or like a small like chain restaurant. And I was it was me, my sister, and my mother, and it was like a type of almost like a Pizza Hut type, like a small little place, and they had a buffet. And I remember me and my sister were looking at the food options, and it was just like, it was just very strange. It was like all the food you wouldn't want to eat, like chicken feed, and just very
Everything's fried. Yeah.
correct. So yeah, I think different parts of the country, yeah, like eating vegetables is not considered like a something you do because you want to do it. I know my mom was visiting family in that same part of the country, and that thing happened. She made a vegetable dish at like a family dinner, and no one really wanted to eat it because it's just like you don't eat vegetables because like you only eat vegetables for health. It's not something that's appetizing or delicious to eat. And I think that is a view that's shared like nationwide. And it's odd because I mean vegetables are delicious. If you cook them correctly, they can be very appetizing. If not the main course, they are like top billing when it comes to the dinner plate. But um, yeah, it. What do you think? Why do you think that we have this kind of bad food culture and these bad dietary
I
habits?
see. Yeah, you're right. So I love a lot of things you said. It's so just immediately what jumps into my head is like for me, broccoli, spinach, and carrots are some of the most delicious things on planet Earth. I don't care. You can give me the most delicious medium rare cooked cheeseburger in your life, which I do like. Like I'll eat a cheeseburger. I'm not gonna lie, but give me some broccoli and some spin on the side, some little carrot, a little onion. Like these things are absolutely delicious, like you said, if you prepare them correctly. And they actually provide nutrients, whereas the other things, like you said, when you went to that buffet, you got, I bet you there was chicken fingers, mozzarella sticks, pizzas, and everything is fried in batter and butter and fat, and these are the things that when we were growing up in the 90s, uh, this is in my head was what people ate. I didn't You don't eat a salad or you eat vegetables. That's not a meal. Your meal needs to be something that's dunked in butter and some kind of red meat with it. Some kind of really horrible protein for you instead of other good proteins that now that we're older and we can make our own dietary decisions that we choose to put into our body. Because literally, if you think about it, what it comes down to me to your question is look at what you're doing to your body when you're putting those things into your body. What do you think is going to happen after a couple years? It's not. It may taste delicious. Am I going to lie about that? No, it tastes really good. Going to McDonald's tastes good. Is it good for you? Absolutely not. So, if you can somehow separate the distinction, and the thing about me is with the food marketing in America, and that's the problem. They've manipulated everyone almost like a sheep type mentality where y- uh, people are hardwired now to think that, oh, my dinner, my lunch is going to be that double cheeseburger from Burger King, and then my dinner is going to be, I'm going to go to Wendy's and I'm going to get a bacon cheeseburger after that. And it's like, you can't really sustain that for a while unless you want to get diabetes, unless you want to have heart disease, cardiovascular issues. And we wonder why, like you said, that's why Oklahoma is a good example. In these states outside of where we normally populate, Miami, Los Angeles, the New Jersey, New York, the Northeast, the Northwest is very good about this too. Everywhere else in this country, that's what they're doing. They're they may cook breakfast at home, but then they're going to they're going to go to Chick-fil-A for lunch, and then they're going to go to Red Lobster for dinner, and that's what they do. And I think we've been conditioned to do that because as children, when I would watch entertainment, um, every commercial that came on was like you said, Captain Crunch was going Little Debbie's just feeding everyone these chemically created oatmeal cream pies. It's not a real oatmeal. There's no oatmeal in that. I'll tell you that right now. So, and we were just like, and we kind of, in the manipulation part comes is we develop like a savory taste bud for it, and it kind of like it wears you down so that nothing else tastes that good to you, like a carrot, like a red onion, like a banana, like a green apple. And you don't want those things because you're it's not even a figurative statement. You're literally addicted to the preservatives and the sugar that they're just driving into you. So that's kind of my rant on that.
There's a couple interesting points and a couple questions that I kind of have for you based on what you just said. So one question is, do you think so as you described how for a lot of people, and I remember when you and I both worked at our first job together, there would be, I wouldn't say the minority, the majority of people every day for lunch they were going to go to a local place and get like a burger. They're going to get chicken fingers. They're going to get like a very tasty, satisfying meal, but probably is not healthy. That at least that's the most of the meals that I saw people eat. So my question is, like, is that conditioned? Was that taught, or is it that
Absolutely right. Yep.
those foods are always going to be tasty, as you said? And I wonder if it's just because we live in a country of abundance. Like, if you have the option between a vegetable and a steak, I would say probably around the world, those who have the option to have the steak over the vegetable would probably choose the steak because the steak is, it's delicious. It's fatty. There's salty elements to it. Your body kind of craves those things. But in a lot of places, you have meat rarely because you can't afford it. It's not abundant. So it's not really a choice. It's more or less like you can't.
I think you bingo was his name-o because you said the number one thing. It's not it's people that do the things that I described, that they go to the buffet, they eat multiple every lunch 7 days a week is a fast food meal. They can't afford the other things. They need that. Why do you think like places like Popeyes have, oh, the 5 for 5 meal? I can literally walk into a Wendy's, get 3 sandwiches and chicken nuggets and fries and pay $5. That's it. And I can feed 3 people for $5. Am I slowly killing them over time? Probably. But we can all have a tasty, satisfying, we're all content and full. And I, as a maybe like the leader of the household, I only paid $5 for that. So that's a huge element to this. And the second element for me is um, is genetically, as we said, for history. So we as human beings, we can. That's why I love this topic, because we can go even back. When we were hunters and gatherers, and we were making fires and living in caves, and just throwing rocks at each other, we were killing animals and cooking them and eating them. So the other element that's also hard to do, because like you said, why is it savory to have that steak? It's because for thousands of years, the humans, it gets encoded in your DNA and your taste bud. It's a physical thing. It's your and a psychological thing. Your taste buds only enjoy that bad piece of meat, and they would rather choose that over if I gave you like a bushel of vegetables, which would not only also satisfy you, but also give you nutrients and vitamins. Nah, I want the steak. And it's because, as I said, over those thousands of years, we were just, it was like, I hate to use the word barbaric, but because at that time, like, that's how you survived. You needed that. You just needed those calories. But it over time it hurt us as an overall species.
So I'm not someone who thinks that meat is inherently bad. I know some people do. I personally I don't. If you choose not to eat meat for whatever reason, perfectly fine. It's like it's a free world. Do what you want to do. So I agree that I think those foods we have a natural desire to consume because they're calorie rich and they're dense. And as you said, if you lived in an environment where you weren't sure where your next meal was coming from, the meat and the fat and really the sugar is a greater guarantee of calories than the lettuce or the basic vegetation. So I think that's one reason. And I think you can see this, like I've noticed this in people who, let's say they're first generation American, that we even worked with people like I'm thinking of people who came from, we have a mutual friend who came from Dominican Republic. And if you remember, she ate rice, beans, and chicken almost every day. And rice, beans, and chicken, if you have if you're a manual laborer, if you're going to be working in a field, if you're going to be doing work, or you got to make sure that you yourself or your kids have calories in you, that is great. I mean, that's going to keep you alive. But if you come into a country or you come into a place where you don't have to worry about that, and you keep eating like that. So it's like you came from an environment where, let's say you had to do manual labor. You need a lot of calories. And now you are transported to an environment where you don't have to do that kind of work. Maybe you work in an office or you have a more sedentary lifestyle. If you continue to eat like that, you're going to get fat. And I think you see that a lot. Like I actually believe that is probably one of the reasons why you do see a lot of obesity. It's not necessarily that people always have bad food habits. It's that their food habits made sense in a certain environment, and now they no longer make sense in a new environment.
Yes, exactly. So that's very well said. I agree with that. And it's kind of, I'm also with you on the team of like, meat is not bad. Meat is not bad. I'll promise you I would never be vegan in my entire life, and I can promise you that right now. And it's not because of like some political thing or which a lot of people make it now. It's like, oh, we want to make this another hot button social media issue for people. Let's shame more people because they just happen to like chicken, right? That's I'm not on that team. But the team I'm on is, and I'm glad that also people that are around me have started eating healthier, because we know it's like now that we have all this information and the science and we're educated, we can see that you can enjoy yourself for a little bit. No one's saying you can't go out to Peter Luger's and have that nice meal. I'm not saying you can't do that. What I'm saying is you can't do that every single day. And that's where I think the people, as I said, not in those areas, basically in the corners, the four corners of America, Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, Northwest, everywhere else in that middle, basically the breadbasket, the red state area, they they kind of think that if you they almost take it like a slight or an insult. It's like, you can't tell me what to eat. I'm gonna drive 17 chicken fingers into me, and that's just gonna be it. You can't tell me what to do. You can't. Don't like stomp on my liberties. And it's not about that. It's like, we're trying to tell you to do that because you weigh 375 pounds, and you probably are gonna have a heart attack within the next 3 years if you keep doing this. That's why. And it's not an insult to your intelligence or anything. It's like we're literally trying to heal you, and you won't let us. And I think that's where those, like, that portion of America, and unfortunately, with a lot of other things in like politics, academics, culturally, a lot of that's most of America, and that's what people around the world forget. It's like most of America is that portion of America.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I think that I wouldn't even say that, that the negative food habits or whatever you want to call them are located or are focused in. I mean, like, I would never say the South or the West or the Midwest. I think it's literally nationwide. I mean, because honestly, we live in New York, for example, and I would say that a huge chunk of the people that I know do not eat healthy. They eat for taste. And I think that is a nationwide thing. And honestly, I actually think that's a human thing. I do not think that is like a cult like America or another country. I believe, and it's not everywhere. Like for example, France. France has very strict food laws. Like I've heard that their meat laws are extremely stringent. So stringent that they will not allow imported meat from other countries because the local providers could never compete with like American beef distributor because of the things we're allowed to do that they're not allowed to do. But outside of like those specific places, I think people, I think a lot of them eat for taste. If it tastes good, I'm going to eat it. I'm hungry, therefore I need to eat. And it doesn't really come down to a question of, well, should I eat this or should I eat that? Like, is this a good thing for me to eat to satisfy my hunger? Or is this a bad thing for me to eat, even though it satisfies my hunger? It's more of aesthetics. It's more about sensation and taste and those types of
It's a pleasure. Yes,
correct.
it's a pleasure. But I think that's an excellent point. So yeah, I will take that back because, like you said, there are pockets of New York where people eat just as bad as everyone else. So I shouldn't be the snobby New Yorker who would be like, we eat better than everyone else. No, we don't. We don't either. You're right. But the one thing I will say about places like Los Angeles and New York is you have more options and people kind of you have more people around you, so you have it's like kind of a more of incentive to eat healthier than you would at places like if I just dropped you into like the middle of Missouri, where everyone is pretty much like-minded and they all have the same dietary habits. New York and Los, at least you can see, you can physically when you go to the grocery store and the restaurant, you at least you can see. Oh, yeah, maybe I can, if I see the healthy option, I might go for the healthy option today. That's the one thing. But you're right. The New Yorkers still eat like trash, and it's I think it's you're right, it's a human element. It's like we like it's the same thing with like all your vices and all your entertainment choices. You like the things that make you feel good. People like food that tastes good. That's just the way it's going to be. And what food tastes good? Mostly those type of foods. So, but what we can even move on to the second topic is I think the food that like these giant corporations who've become like multi-billion-dollar corporations at this point prey on that what you just said. And they're like, okay, we know people like the taste of this. Now let's just exploit the shit out of them so that every morning not only they want it, but their children are going to want Lucky Charms every morning. Let's just exploit that, and we're going to make a boatload of money off of this.
So I agree with you 100%. Honestly, so as you were saying that, a couple thoughts came to my head. It was that right, the habits you form as a child, a lot of those habits, not all of them, stick with you throughout your whole life. And I think specifically when it comes to food habits. And you're right, like it is almost insidious that a company, because you know that if you're an advertiser, you know that that's almost a fact. Like you're counting on that. So you're saying, all right, let's get these people hooked on our product at, I don't know, 7, because we know that when they're 37, if we can get them when they're 7, they'll probably be with us their whole life. And I agree with you. Like I think as a human who consumes food, that's one thing. You want to eat something that tastes good. You like that. But lots of food tastes good. Healthy food can taste good, but if you're never taught that or exposed to it, you don't know it. And I think you're right. Like those advertisers, they know that their product is not good for you. Sugar is not good for you. It's like beyond a question at this point. So how do you, as a, let's say, an intelligent adult, rep a product that you have to know is bad and is going to hurt a person? I mean, eating essentially flakes of, I don't know, puffed rice that's coated in sugar it's barely nutrition. It'll keep you alive, but that's the most it's going to do. It's going to keep you alive. And I do think that's wrong. I think if you were in advertising, the whole idea that they make that stuff, and I've also heard that even in stores, they put those cereals, and I think those companies even pay to have their cereals usually put low at the height of a small child. So it's like it's worse than drug dealing, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because I've never met or been around too many drug dealers that target children. I know the PSAs say that they do, but I don't think that's the case. But here you have cereal, which these sugary cereals are not good for you, and you are going out of your way to target an impressionable child. And whatever flavors they are exposed to, it's likely that is going to now calibrate them. That's what tastes good and will always taste good.
That's yes, exactly right. And that you just made me think of a Seinfeld and Larry David joke where there's a joke in Seinfeld where they have an episode where they talk about Entenmann's, which is if you eat an Entenmann's cake, that's probably a week's worth of sugar you just ate in one serving of a slice of cake from Edmonton's. Yeah. And they're like, oh, they have their own section at the end of the aisle. Do carrots have their own section that's displayed, like you said, right there, right in front of you? It's always at the front. It's always at the height that, like you said, that the children can see it. And no, it's usually the produce is usually like to the right or in the back. But when you walk in, at least for me, when I was walking into the supermarket that was closest to me in the Bronx, Seatown, um, walk in, first thing you see, Entenmann's. Boom. That's the first thing that's staring me right in the face. And that's why that joke resonated with me, because it's like he's right. And like you said, that's how you literally condition them at a young age, and it's worse than they're targeting the children purposely. And that's why I wanted, when I in the beginning, to bring it back, they have all these fun mascots, all these cartoon fun cool mascots. That's what gets the children hooked on all these like sweets. And sugar, as you said, is the number one enemy for your diet. Sugar is could If you eat sugar in abundance, you're literally killing yourself. It's like smoking cigarettes. There should be a Surgeon General warning on these cereal boxes being like, if you eat this cereal regularly, you're literally killing yourself.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that, because if you think about it historically, and I mean, go back to, as you were saying earlier, like hunter-gatherer times, think about sugar. Where sugar is not like a readily available. Like, where do you get sugar naturally? You get it from fruit, you get it from honey, and if you were somehow blessed to have grown up, in a small part of the world where sugarcane grows naturally, like those were things that fruit is seasonal, so you're not exposed to it all the time. Um, Honey is not abundant, and usually, if honey is tucked away in places that are hard to get to, and sugarcane you need to process, and it's not everywhere. So humans were exposed to sugar infrequently, and when they had it, it was great because it was like, oh, this is a lot of calories. Like, I'm gonna feel real good. I have all these calories in me, and I don't know the next time I'm gonna get exposed to it. But now, sugar is in abundance. You can have sugar. People have sugar every day.
Every day, a lot of people all day, every day.
All day, every day. If you have soda, you put, some type of sugar substitute in your sugar substance in your coffee. You have ice cream. You have, like you said, Edmonds or whatever. It's like we're all ODing on sugar all the time.
And that's why I like, to your point where you said it's like that's worse than me trying to get a child addicted to like a controlled substance, because you're literally conditioning them from the time they're old to only like the taste of that. And it's predatory, in my opinion. That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, I mean, 100%. It's predatory. I mean, I was thinking about it when you were talking earlier. When you're going to a C-town or wherever, a bigger grocery store, it's not only that those items have the cool or interesting like mascots, but they're also really colorful. The packaging, everything they do is to be alluring, to catch the eye, to attract you, and it's also those are the things that attract kids. I mean, think about a toy that you buy for a kid. It's usually colorful. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's going to naturally, they're going to gravitate towards it. So you're doing the same thing with a food that you know I have to believe with 100% of my being that you know that this is not a good thing. You're right. We live in a world where all of this evidence has been already proven. It's been proven that sugar is in large quantities is not good for you. Like done. It's not even a question anymore.
Right, exactly. So and that's what's like it's kind of sad that we've allowed it to get to this point, but it's like you said before, it's like I can't really blame anyone because we just didn't have the knowledge of all this back in the day. And when we I know when I'm sure you can say the same. When I was growing up, when I was 8 years old, I was watching cartoons after school, and I saw the commercial. I was like, oh yeah, I want that cookie. That's the normal after school snack. They even show kids running into their house, going into the fridge and grabbing Sunny Delight. Sunny Delight is not orange juice. There's nothing orange juice about it. It's just flavor and sugar. And that's what we were seeing. Yeah.
It's like I think Dave Chappelle said it I'm pretty sure he said it in one of his skits. Like we didn't have orange juice, we had Sunny D, and we had like blue drink, not grape juice, blue drink or something like that. Because you're right, it's not really a juice; it's a flavored beverage. But when you were saying that, there was one thing I thought about, and I'm surprised I never thought about it before. The food industry is even worse than drugs in this element, this aspect. I at a young age got you hooked on Captain Crunch. You grew up, you ate it. Maybe your mom said, "Oh, this is good." Like you know, when you have kids, you get them hooked on Captain Crunch, and it's a cycle that never ends. It's worse than drugs because you are going to
It's generational.
correct. And that's like an insane thing because I think that's the truth. When you see someone eating something that's a little strange or, you don't think is good for them, it's very likely that they were taught that that was good for them. And parents are not, they're not infallible. They make mistakes. They don't know. They are only as good as what they were programmed to know. So that's why I think with those types of businesses, they know this 100%. Like they do all the data, they crunch all the numbers. They know if I get this person, then good chance that he's going to turn into five other people we get hooked on this product.
Yes, very well said. Because I forgot. I can't believe I haven't mentioned this earlier, and you kind of pseudo mentioned it. Is when we saw those commercials, we always saw, look how many vitamins are in Cocoa Puffs. Look at how this is the balanced breakfast I remember as a child. I said, no, it's not the balanced breakfast. You're literally like feeding me an entire bowl of sugar with a, a fake grape juice drink that has never even touched a grape. So that was literally our breakfast back in the day.
And the thing is that food, for how many calories is in it, is not going to it's not going to make you feel full for a long time. Like if you think about it, like I occasionally will have a bowl of cereal because it's good. It's almost like a dessert, like a snack. But it's not going to hold you over for very long, considering how many calories are in it. And that's kind of the crazy thing is that, you get that sugar rush, but give it an hour, like you're gonna need something substantial again. So if you're just kind of like calibrated to eating these foods, you have to eat a lot of them to actually feel full over a long period of time. And I think that kind of accelerates the problem.
That's another component to the grand scheme of the business. Exactly. So not only do they make it, they instill it to you psychologically where it makes it generational. They make it so that you think you need to have more of it because, like you said, it's not substantial enough for you to be like, oh, like I just ate before school. I remember being in grade school. It's like I ate before school, and I get to class, first class, I'm hungry again, and I was like, "What's happening here?" So that's a good point.
All right, so I'm gonna hit you up with my question. Are you ready? And my question is more a different vein entirely. So my question to you, Rob, is in this digital age that we live in, I think that's what it'll come to be known as, the digital age. Do you think that privacy still exists?
I love that question because I think about this like maybe 3 times a day, and um, no, I think we've traded our privacy for gadgets. That's what I think. And like to summarize it in one sentence, I'm gonna break it down a little bit. We've the How much information we've given to companies like Google and um, Apple under the guise of, oh, let's make all this super convenient. Everything is convenient. I can sit in this chair, which I'm sitting in right now, and do everything on a phone that's probably like this big. Sounds really convenient, and I don't have to talk to anyone. I can just get things given to me. They're brought over and all this. But you know what you're doing? They have images of your hands. They have images of your face. I'm not saying these companies are doing anything malicious with it, but there's data farms. Apple, I believe it's in North Carolina. Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, the Apple bought like basically a city's worth. They In rural North Carolina, and there's it's just the iCloud data farm, and they just have everyone's personal cards, addresses, where you lived, what you're buying every day, all. Look at the Apple Pay. Now it's not just Chase Bank that has, oh, I see he goes to this grocery store and he likes buying these things. Now you do it with Apple. Apple knows, oh, Chris Corvo likes buying carrots from this store in Brooklyn or Queens, and let's send them ads for these things in Queens and things like that. So yes, yeah, we've definitely completely given up our privacy for gadgets. Yes.
Yeah, so I thought about this question for you a couple days ago because I was thinking about microphones because we're doing this. I was editing some stuff and I was getting like interference a little bit. And then I was realizing, I'm like, crap. I'm like, my microphone is on all the time. Like my phone microphone is on. In most cases, my computer microphone is on all the time. And I think nowadays people are starting to cover up their cameras. You just notice it. It's more prevalent now. People, like if you went to a cafe and you looked around, you're probably going to see a more than one person that has their camera on their computer concealed. But we don't, you know, so like people do that, but you don't see people like, but the microphone, people overlook it. And that's just an example. Like here's this thing that you carry with you in very intimate environments. Like you take it into the bathroom, you you have it in your room, you have it with you in situations that could be very compromising. And this thing is on all the time. I was also thinking about like my phone. Why is it that there's a camera on both sides? It's convenient, but it's also, if you think about it, if you were looking a little bit more conspiratorially, that means no matter what way I put my phone, up or down, there's a camera facing outward that can see something. And it's just it's strange that we've become so comfortable with having cameras and microphones in our homes where you would never allow someone to put one in your home, but you do it yourself. You choose to. And it's you're right, as far as data collection is concerned, and it's it's going to become a big issue, I think. If it's already an issue.
Yeah, I think that's I love what you just said there because it just got me. There's like 5 things I want to say now. One is you're exactly right. We voluntarily, to put it and like to summarize it briefly, we've voluntarily bugged ourselves. Essentially, it's not even essentially. It's exactly what we've done, and we've done that, and people don't realize it because, oh, it's like, oh, the iPhone's cool, having PlayStation's cool, having the smart TV is cool, but like you said, now I bet you in every house, I could just look around this house right now. There's probably 6 cameras and like 4 microphones, and they're all live right now. Could Are they being accessed? Then probably not. But could they be? Absolutely. And so I like what you said there, because we would never like the the thought of having someone in the bathroom with you that can access the camera or hear what you're doing is so like it would drive me insane. But there's sometimes that, let's say I'm going to brush my teeth or something. Oh, I'm gonna I have my phone in my pocket. I'll put it on the counter here. That phone's in the bathroom. So whatever I'm doing in the bathroom now, that phone's there. And it's like that thought is crazy now to me, because it's become second nature. So at this point, like, we don't even think about this, but you're right. We've bugged all of our houses, and even in the most private of places, we now have microphones and cameras that could, like, essentially be recording everything. I don't want to get into the dark government conspiracy stuff, right? Because who am I? Who the fuck is Robert Avery that the CIA wants to, like, oh, let's hear what he's doing in the bathroom at 8:30 in the morning. But could they, like, the fact that we just allowed that to happen, where you, as you said, you wouldn't let someone come in and install a microphone in your bathroom, but you voluntarily paid for it and brought it into the bathroom yourself.
Yeah.
That's a crazy thought, Chris. That's actually insane. The entire world has done that to itself.
Yeah, willingly, and we both worked at an Apple store. Not only do they do it willingly, but they rush for the opportunity to do it, which is kind of crazy. But what I was thinking about also was to what you said about data and data collection. Like, think about us, right? And think about, let's say your parents' generation. Think about your father's generation, right? It's a common thing. I'm going to go in this direction, right? Men, boys, it's like a very common thing. Certain age, they start looking at certain pictures and things happen, right? So, you can hear stories from your dad and him and his friends running around the neighborhood. Oh, they found like a Hustler magazine or a Playboy magazine, and it's kind of a natural evolution, I think, in boys to men. Like, that's going to happen. Now you have the internet. And what was a paper medium that you engaged with for however many years and then you stopped, but it was a very private thing, is now a very public thing, because every time you go to one of those websites, that data is stored. That's all creating data, and there's it's linked to you. So I think for like kids, and like, it's going to be weird, because the things you do as a child and as a young, an adolescent, a teenager, you're not going to be that same person when you're 40 or 50. You could be a very different person, right? And with the internet, with this data world that we live in, you're not given the opportunity to evolve, because you better believe, if you become a public figure, you go run for president, let's say, you don't think that shit's going to come back up? It exists. It didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened on the internet. So it's like all of these young people nowadays, like the people that are going to run for president when we're in our 70s, their whole life will have been spent in this world where you go on the internet. Just imagine the amount of dirt you'll be able to find on people when since they were a baby. Their whole footprint, their digital footprint goes 30, 40 years.
You're gonna know another excellent point. Well said. You're gonna know everything about anyone who was born, I would say, after like 2000. When we move forward, gonna know every single thing about them, what they like, what they do in their private time, the people they talk to, which is another thing. You think all these messages and emails that you're sending aren't also being stored? And they know who you're talking to, what you're saying to them, why you're saying it, and who you like to frequently communicate with. So that's also a part of it. So, but like you said, like the fun to a more comedic point, let's not shortchange the writing in Playboy magazine. They had some good articles, and the writing was good, and I'll fucking die on that hill if you made me to. Playboy had great articles, okay? Good pictures too, but like you said, like we came in like the past generations is different. Every and I that's what I said. I think we said this when we had our boy on, Joey. Every time you input a search into Google and you press enter, someone's learning about who you are every single time. And that's why you said like these people that are growing up, and think about presidents. I mean, we may not have an Earth in 2080, given the way we've just destroyed everything, as humans. But that should be another topic. um, think about the, what we're gonna know about the president from like 2050, and he's could have grown up in a where everything he did could be tracked, recorded, and stored. Like you said, there's literally going to be no skeletons because all the skeletons are going to be roaming around like zombies, and they would be everywhere.
Yeah, people are worried about big corporations impacting like government and elections and whatnot. You have no idea. Like we haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg. You know what I mean? We haven't even gotten down deep. Because imagine when that person runs for president in 2050, let's say, it'll be real easy for one of these big companies to say, "Hey, so I got this file. It literally has every search, everything you've streamed, viewed, looked at. It's about 100 terabytes. Do you want us to leak this to journalists, or do you want to just do what we tell you to do?" It'll be much easier because think about it. We don't have the anonymity that we once had. Because I mean, we both grew up in a time where when we were kids, you could make mistakes, and if you got caught, you dealt with it. But if you didn't get caught, you had that opportunity to grow and learn from them and change. People are not going to have that anymore because you already see it, right? Like even now, people like with the Me Too movement and things like that. And I'm not saying right or wrong, but you have people being called into question for things that happened 20, 30 years ago. And and in many cases, there's no real evidence. In the future, there will be evidence because that person it'll be the digital age. Like you'll probably be able to find something. And that's a sad reality because it takes away people's ability to reinvent themselves. If you were a douchebag at 14, 15, 16, 18, 20, and you change, you become a completely different person. You really do put in the work. When you're 40 and you're trying to do something good, people are not going to forget that. They're going to bring all that dirt, all that garbage up from your past, and they're going to lay it out in front of you in vision and beautiful detail. It'll be 3-dimensional.
That's right. That's right. There'll be audio and visual evidence of it. But so yeah, to your point, the real shame is, I truly believe, and I know a lot of people of our generation and definitely previous do believe this as well. Um, you learn, you forge your character from the struggles and the mistakes you make. That's part of living your life. Now that that's just exposed for the entire world to see, I think is why do you think we have all these problems in the digital age where people go on social media and Facebook? We have Donald Trump as our goddamn president, things like this. It's because people don't let you commit mistakes anymore. You do once, like you said, you can be the most like philanthropic, charitable, nicest person in your 30s, but if you were 17 and you went out in college one night or 18, excuse me, or high school, it doesn't matter, senior high school, freshman in college, and you did one bad thing, now that just buries you and you're done. And it's because everyone wants to go online and say, "Look how much better I am than that person," because no one knows that I did that at 17 when I did something like that. But his shit is out now, and it's such, I hate, like you said, it's some people deserve that. Some people were just monsters when they were younger, like Harvey Weinstein. That guy deserves everything he gets. But there's also other people. What we fail to realize is there's people that have been thrown off of movie sets. The studio fires the director for just a single thing that they said to some random person 35 years ago, and now that's enough to bury you. You can no longer make mistakes. And how are you going to forge your character and become a better person if you are literally unable? In this day and age, you have to be picture perfect. You cannot make a mistake at all, or you're going to have the public form coming down, raining down on you. And I think that's going to hurt a lot of human development. It's going to hurt a lot of creative arts. It's going to hurt a lot of inventions. And there's going to be people that we abused online that could have been great inventors, and they could have done wonderful things charitably and done great things for the whole world. And now they're completely science and they've gone completely dark because they made one mistake when they were 18 years old. And that's such a shame to me as a human. And I don't even know a solution to this because I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't know how. It's really hard to even guess. It could be that we hit a breaking point, and it may not even be too far into the future where, I don't know, 5-10 years from now, this may not be an issue because it caused so much that we had to say, you know what, this has to stop. And I believe you're seeing that take place now, where there are people, even in technology, that are starting to call into question a system that we've created. There's one guy, and I forget his name. I think you would actually find him really, really interesting. He has long dreadlocks, and he plays all these different instruments. But they call him the father of virtual reality. He actually wrote a book recently called 10 Reasons Why You Should Delete Social Media. If you look up, anyone who's listening, if you look up that title, you'll find what his name is. But this is a guy who's, lives, breathes technology. He's in it. And he even brought up, he's now kind of on a mission to try to change what we've created. Because from his perspective, he's like, we created a system and we thought it was the best system. And when he says that, he means the internet, that it's free for all, that you can go on Google, you can go on you can use all these tools. And he said, when we did that, what we didn't predict was that we would leave these companies with only one real way to make a profit. And now they've become addicted to it. And that way is through data. Right? Data is the resource of our generation, right? There was, the gold hunts, but now it's data. It's how can you make money off of data? And he said that has corrupted society to its very core. And I haven't had an opportunity to talk to a young person in a while, like someone who's in high school now. But I'd be curious if they feel even more pressure and stress because, it's already hard to be a kid, to be a teenager. You're already trying to work and be popular and deal with all of those social pressures. But now you've added that extra element of everything you do. You go to a party, people are probably Snapchatting it, and you do something dumb, which I've done tons of dumb things when I was young, drinking and parties and whatnot. It's like, now imagine someone had videotaped that, had put it on the internet, and now your whole social circle is going to have a laugh at your expense. Maybe your whole high school is going to have a laugh at your own expense. And people commit suicide over that kind of stuff. I mean, that has happened. Bullying leads people commit suicide.
And there's another component that I want to add that makes this why this is so unfair is because Chris, when we were teenagers, when human beings, men and women, female and male, go 14, you turn 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, there's chemical hormonal things that are happening to you, which is nature intended to happen. And the fact that people are holding things like that against you is just completely unfair. And like you said, some now you can the entire high school is probably laughing and watching and sharing, and then imagine, I couldn't even imagine walking down a high school hallway right now. Let's say you went to prom and then you go back for like your final exams now, and let's say you did something like innocently silly, like you're 18, you're underage, you're not supposed to drink, you're not, but let's say you get you smoke weed and you drink, and you do something stupid at the prom. Not crazy, like you're not harming other people. You just do some. Now every single person in your high school is watching this over and over and over again. I couldn't even imagine the feeling of having to walk back into school to get your diploma and finish your final exams after that. That's like you said, like it drives people to literally suicide. They kill themselves because they can't face that. And it's not fair because, like you said, learning from your mistakes, making bad decisions, that's fine. But there's also biological things that are happening to you during that time that you really can't hold against humans for feeling this way. And now in this day and age, people not only make fun of you for it, but they bring it up and they use it to like ruin your career and your life.
Yeah, I mean, it won't go away. It's there forever. I would almost say if I was gonna have kids, it might be advantageous to go live somewhere very kind of rural and almost old school. It's kind of funny. Like you'll hear about people who kind of go off the grid, or they decide to raise their family in a very like unorthodox way. And usually, like if you see this come up in a news article, they get kind of laughed at as being kind of, strange, weird, whatever you want to call it. But I actually think that they might be doing, if they're doing it for their kids, they might be doing them a huge service. Because you're gonna be using technology. You have to. But to be able to give your child an environment where they can make mistakes, they can experiment, they can grow, they can learn. Just like you said, they can go through that hormonal development in a safe way where their mistakes are not going to be hauled back up and they're going to be confronted by them over and over again. That is the childhood that we had. I think that's the childhood that anyone before us had. And now kids are missing out on that. And they're not aware of what they're missing out on. But I think you see it, because I think suicide rate has increased pretty significantly amongst young people. And you got to wonder if this is one of the contributing factors.
Yeah, I would once again, like, we're no experts on these topics, but I would venture to say, I haven't done enough of my own research on this, but I would venture to say that's a large component of this. And also things like, I hate to bring up a dark topic, but things like massive school shootings and things like this. These things that we've just been talking about are, in my estimation, a significant contributing factor to these type of tragedies that have been happening.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think definitely. I think school shootings, pretty much anything. This is one of those subjects that we're not even certain how invasive it is, and it's probably affects even it does affect you and I in probably ways that we're not even aware of. Like I remember you mentioned this in one of our previous episodes, how a librarian you had met had said that they had to teach, like they almost had to teach a child how to flip a page because it was so ingrained, it had become a natural habit to tap or to stroke with your finger like you do. And I that has happened to me. I can count multiple times where I was reading something, a physical book, and I tap to go to the next page, and I'll catch myself. But it's become a habit that's become natural.
Right. So imagine it's like at least we have the advantage of having actually had to go for school and buy physical books and things like this. But imagine, as you said, think about the people moving forward. Think about the kids that when they go to school, there's nothing physical about what they're learning, and everything is on the computer or a tablet. And now, even with this pandemic, it's making it worse because now you have tele education and you have everything is over the internet now. So they're not even sitting in a classroom now. And once you remove that, like, what if we get to the point where not only do you never have physical books or utensils or your notebooks or the textbooks, now you don't even have to go to a classroom. And that's what education will become. That's scary. That's like Total Recall, Terminator, Minority Report shit right there.
I mean, we're already living at the cusp of, I think, of those. I mean, think about it. Sci-fi is usually a precursor to reality. I think a lot of times you can find things that were in a science fiction book that now we have, that they are tangible things. Minority Report is great. I mean, a lot of the technology in Minority Report, like the iPhone is kind of like, and there are new inventions that are going to be very similar. So we're about at an hour. So to wind it up, or wind it down, I should say, what are some of your final thoughts on either of these two questions?
So my final thoughts, like first to your question, I think it, hopefully, and I think we still have this. There's still time to stop it, but I don't know if we actually can because I think we've allowed AI to just get too far. But if there are ways, we don't have to get into them now. But I hope us as humans can realize, especially at a time like this where we've had time to reflect and stay home and talk to people, we can realize that we need things like everything being controlled by the internet is probably not the best way that we need to go. Even though it's easy and convenient, we need to realize that this can't get any worse than it has. We actually have to scale her back a little bit. And secondly is I hope kids today aren't seeing commercials of that like frog guy. What was that? What was the cereal with the frog with the guy with the baseball hat? Like all this guy, the Lucky Charm, little leprechaun. I hope kids and their parents are telling them don't let your kids get addicted to basically junk food and everything with sugar because they like the commercials they're seeing while they're watching their cartoons. Those are my two thoughts.
All right, so for my final thoughts to your questions, yeah, I hope that food culture gets better. I think it is because all these diets and things, like people are, I think it's becoming more prevalent. I don't think eating healthy is so isolated to those who are like in the the gym kind of crowd or the health crowd. At least it seems like it's becoming a little bit more in the majority, the majority body of knowledge. I do hope that, yeah, as you said, I really hope that like a lot of those companies are forced to change, or if they want to keep making what they're making, they have to like I don't know, they're pay for it. Um, I don't think you can just keep dishing out things. And like if you're gonna put, the way I look at it this way, you're gonna put a label on cigarettes. Why not put a label on those kind of cereals? I mean, you're saying it's been proven, right? If you can get diabetes if you eat a lot of sugar in a long enough period of time, you're going to get diabetes. So, yeah, you smoke a lot of cigarettes, you have a chance of getting lung cancer. So they're both negative. You make your choice. It's a free country. Choose what you want to choose. But if you're going to put the label on the cigarettes, I don't think there's anything wrong putting the label on something like that. So I agree with it, and I hope that's the case, and I feel that it will get better. As far as technology is concerned, I think we have to remember that technology is a tool. And with tools, you have a tool, you are the master of that tool. It is not a master of you. If I have a hammer, I got to learn how to swing a hammer and do something constructive with it. But if I hit someone in the head with a hammer, I can't blame the hammer. My hand was the one controlling the hammer. So I think that's kind of this. You said it very well. Like, we've kind of let it get out of control, and it's time to rein certain elements of it back. And I hope that people can kind of take a step back and just gain some perspective. Because think about it. If you were like of our generation or our parents' generation, you don't really got to take that much time. Just go back in your mind a couple years and just say, like, okay, like, well, I was able to do this. Can you do this now? And the answer is probably no. Like you said, you could make a mistake as a kid in our generation and you get in trouble, but you'd grow up, you'd learn from it. It'd be part of your development process. And then 20 years later, no one is going to give a shit. It's not important, right? It was a mistake you made in the past, but the past remained in the past as long as you improve and try to become a better person. So I hope that people start to ask themselves, what's the future going to be like for this new generation when all of their data is on the internet from the moment they exist? And will that create a lot of problems for them in the future? So I hope that the research is done and people start to maybe wake up to some of the realities that we live in now.